All right, we are live. Welcome into the first iteration of the Tobacco Road and Abroad podcast, episode 1. It's so over for some people. My name's Gareth Parsons, and I'm joined here with Aiden Moore, where we'll be talking all things and everything's Tobacco Road and Abroad. How you doing, Aiden?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I would like to start off this podcast by giving a little story. This Sunday, I was I was sleeping in. I had a big shift at my job the night prior, and I wanted to sleep in and enjoy my Sunday afternoon. And I made the fatal mistake of sleeping past 1 o'clock. I woke up around 1:30 and I saw and I knew that the Carolina Panthers game was already on, so I was excited, ready for a new season. Turned the game on. We were already down like 24-0 and the season was over. So this is probably one of the first times where sleeping in has made a fan completely lose out on an entire season. So that's why I feel like it's over for us. But we're going to cover that today, and hopefully, we can get into the conversation of what's the future for the Carolina Panthers and go a little bit more abroad, talk about the landscape of college football, U.S. soccer, and a new UFC card, UFC 306, that is this weekend. And it should be a very big card, which I'm excited to talk about and delve into. I know you're very passionate about United States soccer. I can't wait for you to school me and give me a little bit of education on the landscape right now. So hopefully we can make a good run for the World Cup soon.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing we'll definitely get into later. But like you said, first off, we're starting out with the Panthers. Not to be pessimistic, but I feel like this is us just being realistic. I don't want to say the season's over as a Panthers fan, but I think unfortunately, like Aiden, you said, it's just I know it's the first game, but there was from what the illegal streams that I had to watch it on, and just yeah, we're not gonna get into that. I'm not trying to beef with 18 Disney right now, but in terms of that Panthers game, I don't think I missed much in terms of missing the first half. Everyone was kind of poor around the board. The defense just looked porous. I mean, Bryce couldn't hit an open receiver to save his life. And I'm a big Bryce Young fan. I was excited when we drafted him. Was I excited the amount of capital we gave up? Absolutely not. But I think the direness of the situation can be spoken for. And another story I'd like to share. I think Aiden and I were on a call. What was it? Tuesday night?
Yeah.
Or no, Monday night. It was Monday night. Monday night foot. Monday night football. Aiden and I were kind of loosely following the game, talking. And I'm just randomly Googling if we have draft pick. I'm curious if we have first round draft pick. And Aiden out of nowhere goes, it's a bad season already when week one's not even over. Monday night football has not even concluded on week one. And Gareth is already Googling if the Panthers have a draft pick.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a good look for anyone right now. And we're already pretty devastated when it comes to injuries. Some of our few good players are already out for a good while. Um, and it just seems like it's going to be another rough season for the Carolina Panthers. And David Tepper, the owner, he's going to have to answer for a lot in this next coming season. I'm not necessarily a big fan of some of his antics that he's been contributing to. Last year, he had a couple of incidents that definitely reflect poorly on the franchise, pouring liquids on fans. That's not a good look. At this point, if I'm at the stadium, I hope he pours acid on me so I don't have to be subjected to this horrendous showing. But I'm gonna like, I always hesitate to say a season's going to be over on week one. This is one thing that like I hate in sports journalism and just fan based discourse. Like after a few weeks, fans will just immediately say a season is a wash. I still think there is a path in which we can move forward and gain some, maybe not wins in the numbers category, but definitely some emotional wins that I feel like the team desperately needs. So saying that the season is over is definitely hyperbole, but Panthers fans have a right to be a little bit concerned about the direction the franchise is going. I was hearing some people stating that this might be an 0-17 season, and looking at the schedule, I'm not saying that's definitely going to be in the cards, but it is definitely going to be a rough showing for the next couple weeks. We have the Chargers next week, and that is going to be a tough game with our defense already struggling and uh, injured to a great extent. I don't see a way in which they can stop Justin Herbert. Um, After that, there's the week with the Raiders. That's going to be another tough game. The only games that you could probably argue that might be a, a shot at a win would be the New York Giants, week 10. And been seeing some memes saying that the game is hosted in Germany and is punishment for World War II. I didn't realize the game was actually in Germany. That is actually a real game, and we are subjecting the Germans to a war crime, if I've ever seen one. But that might be our only shot at a win in the near future. Uh, Commanders is like the Commanders don't look amazing, but compared to the Carolina Panthers, it's going to be tough. The Bears definitely had a weak showing in week one, but were still able to show out with their strong defense and special teams plays. And that's not no longer going to be an easy win or a win that's guaranteed for the Panthers. And I just look at the schedule, and it's going to be a long seasons for the Panthers. But I'm always optimistic and hopeful for a turnaround. If we turn out to be wrong and this is just an outlier for week one, I would be glad to be one of the first to admit that we were hyperbolic and that this uh, notion that the season is over was wrong. But I'm going to need to see some results in order, and the fan base is going to need to see some results in order to get this pessimistic taste out of our mouths.
Definitely, particularly one that I had been looking at was the Bears game, but after how I saw their defense played this weekend, and with how much Bryce likes to turn the ball over, I really don't think we could come out of that game alive, particularly. The only game, like you said, Giants game. And earlier you mentioned quite a few injuries the Panthers have. I'm just going to quickly read some off. Jadeveon Clowney, who's arguably probably the most, not the best, but the most talented player on our defense, is questionable for this weekend. So that's great. Josie Jewell, linebacker, questionable. Both of our tight ends, questionable. One's on the injury reserve. Our star running back, who is supposed to be kind of splitting time and splitting carries with splitting carries with Miles Sanders, Jonathan Brooks, the former Texas running back. He was someone who I was really excited about. He's currently listed as out. Ian Thomas, another one of our tight ends, is on the IR. Jaden Crumedy, defensive tackle. I forget whether he played. I stopped paying attention after a while to that game just because it was so ugly. It was just I paid more attention to the trends than who was on the field. I mean, obviously I knew like Bryce was on the field, Miles Sanders, but I just think with the, like you said, the amount of injuries, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Canales. Like Canales is someone I'm excited about, and did I expect him to be like a year one turnaround? Absolutely no. That would be like Did I expect him to, look competent in the first game? Yes, but not much went right that game, and the Saints aren't what they once were, and they just kinda rolled all over us, and this is a Saints team that's in its heyday is not currently happening, that Saints are, and that's no shade to Derek Carr, but in terms of just kinda the team vibes and the I don't wanna say lack of firepower because they hung 47, but you get what I'm saying, like, no Breeze, no Jimmy G, and I know that those days are long gone, but, like, the really only explosive player I can think of on their team is Alvin Kamara, and yeah, he gashed us. 83 yards, 15 carries for a touchdown. I mean, Shaheed, we couldn't even figure out how to cover him. Yeah, he only had 3 catches, 73 yards and a touchdown. Carr was a near perfect 19 for 23 for 200. Not much really went right, and then if you've got Bryce going under 50% completion, 2 interceptions, like, not even 200 yards, and I know in the NFL, there's a trend recently with quarterbacks, they're not, like in college, it's not uncommon to see quarterbacks throw for 400 yards, but with the NFL, there's with kinda how the Chiefs' offense has evolved and kinda has torched defenses in the past couple years, there's been an emphasis on defending the deep pass, so lower passing yards does, that makes sense because they're trying to defend the vertical, defend, the deep shots, defend the home run ball. So these lower numbers in terms of quarterback, yards per game make sense, but we as Panthers fans, and I guess Panthers as an organization, not have Bryce throwing for less than that's that's not a recipe for success, and below 50% completion rating is that's almost unheard of, I feel like, in the NFL.
Definitely. Definitely. Glad we were able to start on a very positive and upbeat note. Uh, but uh, the Panthers are not the only team that has suffered from week one woes. New York Giants had a tough outing against the Vikings. And it seems like, as I said before, that Tank Bowl in Germany is going to be a masterclass and is going to be one of the greatest games of all time. I can't wait for it. The tanking will be insane. And I'm calling it Tank Bowl game of the season.
Definitely, and I'm inclined to agree. Both of these teams are injury riddled. I mean, Malik Neighbors, the standout wide receiver from LSU, has been listed as questionable for this weekend. The Giants also listed Darius Slayton as questionable. They're going to be missing. Slayton, unlikely to play. He picked up a concussion earlier this week, but he did practice in a limited capacity, but he has been listed as questionable. Several players on their defense, on the Giants' defense, have also been listed as injury reserve. Deontay Johnson, no, not the receiver, the linebacker. I know. Kind of crazy, but like you said, I think this is just gonna be in, an absolute disaster class, and believe me, I want nothing more than the Panthers to pull it out, and I want them to go out there and just absolutely demolish the Giants, so we aren't the definitively worst team in if it's a close game, teams could still make the argument that we are the worst team in the NFL. I just wanna go out there, hang 35 on them, make us definitively the second worst team in one thing, I also feel like the number 1 overall pick comes with a lot of pressure. I feel like teams tend to overthink it sometimes. I mean, obviously, in recent years, certain first overall picks haven't been, in my opinion, have not really been overthought. But if you just think about it with how down bad they are, if things persist, like Aiden and I said, we will be the first to admit if they somehow clinch a playoff spot or, don't clinch it, but, fight for it, make things sweaty for certain teams down the wire, have a few teams get a little jittery towards the end there, like playoff spots and stuff like that, but I don't know, I don't wanna be the worst team, but at the same time, I know we need a draft pick to kinda turn this around, and I
We're
just
going to
kinda
need
feel
a
like
lot of draft picks to turn this around.
we're gonna need a lot of draft picks, and we don't have a lot because we traded them for Bryce, And that no shade to Bryce. Like I know I
I think Bryce still has a lot of potential, and I wholeheartedly think uh, I don't see him working out with the Panthers, but I do see him in the future probably playing a vital role for a team that's already built up and needs a good quarterback. Uh, what makes me hesitant to just throw the can at Bryce is just the fact that we've seen uh, Baker Mayfield be successful in other teams. Uh, and even Sam Darnold has shown some success on other teams. If you make the NFL, you are a good quarterback and you have talent and you have the potential. And I believe, does Young have all the intangibles and the all the physical aspects that you would look for in a quarterback? I'd say no, but he's shown to be efficient in college, and that doesn't always translate to the NFL. But I if I'm other NFL teams and I'm looking for a solid backup or maybe even a rebuild, Bryce Young is not a horrible option. I just feel like the Carolina Panthers are very far gone to the point that 9 out of 10 quarterbacks are going to look um, incompetent at the helm for the Panthers. And I never want to use this platform to belittle or shame anybody that's going through a hard time. That's what I don't want this to be that type of sports show. I want to try to give a calm sense of reassurance to any fan out there that's quick to belittle or try to demean any athlete out there, because athletes are humans too. But I just don't see the Bryce Young project working at Carolina. But I would not be surprised if we see a Geno Smith situation with Bryce Young. I feel like we're selling him a little bit short, and this situation, uh, most quarterbacks aren't going to look good in. So uh, that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, and in defense of Bryce, I know I've been critical of him with his accuracy so far this season, but think about it like this: this is his second offense in 2 years. Last year, he was. I'm very against starting rookie quarterbacks unless it's like incredibly clear that they are the high, far, and better choice. I don't think that was necessarily the case with Bryce. I think Bryce could have benefited from sitting a year. He was not only learning an offense, completely new offense, which is hectic in itself, and we'll get into that with some of the situations with transfer quarterbacks in college about how they're panning out. But learning a new offense, being a rookie, an undersized rookie with a bad line, having a bad line and being undersized, you're already going to make mistakes. But throw a new playbook on top of that. Last season was going to be rough for him. And now the fact that he didn't really have a chance to learn the last system, he's having to start over with a line that's just as bad. And this is I know this is one thing that Tom Brady's been critical of on like podcasts. He talked about developing a quarterback as a lost art. He's like, you don't just learn the playbook. He's like, you learn the program. Like, they build you from. He's like, they don't like. It's not like the army where they break you down and build you up anew. But he's like, they break certain habits. They teach you how to be a new type of quarterback from the ground up. He's like, you're not just learning a playbook. Like, you're learning what it means to be a quarterback in that system. Like, to use me for an example, Tom Brady's like, they didn't just teach me what it meant to be a quarterback. They taught me what it meant to be a quarterback in the Patriots um camp. He's like, how do Patriots quarterbacks drop back? How do they take snaps? How do they act? How do they lead? It's not just about learning the playbook. And I just think while we are judging Bryce, not he did not play well, and I'm pretty sure he'd be the first person to admit that. But we also got to look at it from this is a second offense. One of his most dangerous, or not his most dangerous, one of the most dangerous weapons on our offense is currently hurt, Jonathan Brooks. So like that kind of, and no slight to Miles Sanders. He's a great running back. But when our running game becomes one dimensional where Sanders is kind of the only spearhead of it and kind of our really other threat, it makes the offense kind of, we kind of have to put more of our eggs into fewer baskets, to use a cliche reference. Just we become more predictable. And predictable offenses are easy to stop. Like, and I know you can make the argument that triple option, like in college, is predictable, but that's a whole different. The second you become predictable is the second you become a lot easier to beat. And I think that also is what's adding to the Panthers' problems. Not Bryce is predictable, but our offense is predictable, our defense is predictable, and on top of just not having a very strong roster being predictable, it's just kind of a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Out.
But segue.
About,
I just wanted to say that you bringing up the Tom Brady quote of not being a quarterback, but a quarterback for the Patriots. Right now, unfortunately, I just don't see an identifying culture with the Carolina Panthers. Our best quarterback was Cam Newton, and I am I'm probably one of the biggest Cam Newton fans, but also Cam Newton apologists that you will meet. I feel like the way the media treated him and his prime at Carolina, saying he didn't have the effort, is probably one of the most demeaning and unfair assessments that you can have for a quarterback. He embodied what it was to be a Carolina Panther for a while, and he made a lot of people in the Carolinas proud to be Panthers fans. And for that, I'll always give him his flowers and give him his praises for being having one of the most entertaining primes any NFL quarterback has ever had. But besides Cam Newton, we're Panthers fans. We're still living in 2016. We haven't moved on to define, and our head office hasn't defined a true Carolina Panthers culture. David Tepper has not been the best when it comes to creating a winning culture in the Carolina Panthers. And I hate to just go like sell the team, but the management under him has been lackluster to say the least. And I think if we're going to try to define and create a new culture in which quarterbacks in any position knows what it means to be a Carolina Panther, there's going to have to be a change in management. David Tepper is going to have to wake up and start creating a more winning culture, culture that doesn't involve pouring fans with water and being a true leader of an organization. And right now, there's no culture, there's no life. It feels dead on arrival on week one almost every year now.
and it's that would, even as a Panthers player, I could imagine. Like, I know you're not directly playing for him. The players are playing for Dave Canales, but I could see how kind of take the wind out of your sails to see your owner, who's not the face of the franchise, because obviously those are the players and the coaches, but someone who's supposed to be a leader in your franchise, acting incredibly immature in the stands, not having a care in the world, dumping drinks on fans while the team's spiraling out of control. Currently, he's made bad decisions in the past in terms of like draft picks. Now, I'm happy Bryce is on our team. Like we've talked about, he's a young and talented quarterback. But was that best decision by Tepper in the front office to essentially sell our soul for Bryce Young, open up the war chests that have been stewing and accruing interest. Was that the right move? No, but that's neither here nor there. My point is, if I were a Panthers player, it would not be motivating to play for a player. Like, I'd be motivated to play for Canales because look at his resume. He's had some success, and what he did in Tampa Bay was pretty good, especially what he did with the Buccaneers. So I'd be motivated to play for him, but if like the leader in my organization was seen doing that and that's what he was known for, I wouldn't be embarrassed to be a Carolina Panther. But I have second thoughts. I wouldn't immediately be like, yeah, I'm proud to be a Panther. I'd have to hesitate for a second. Do I really want to be associated with him? I could see that maybe not be a driving factor in how the team's playing, but it could be one thing where it pops up in the back of their mind from time to time. I already play for a team that's struggling, and on top of this, our owner's a scumbag. I'm not gonna like call people out like that usually on this podcast, but what Aiden and I are gonna call it how I see it with. We're not gonna say sell the team, but he has displayed scumbag tendencies in the past. Hence the drink incident that we've referenced several times.
3 times already. First episode, it's over. But on a more optimistic note, though the pro scene in Carolina is not looking good, the college scene in the Tar Heel State and abroad has been optimistic to say the least. The Triangle area has been seeing a resurgence in college football, and even going outside the Triangle into the Carolinas. App State has had a rough week 2, losing to Clemson, but App State still remains a solid group of 5 team. ECU starting off with a 2-0 start. They're looking about as strong as they've ever looked in the past 10 years. App State and ECU are playing each other this weekend. And just segueing into college football, Gareth, uh, what do you have any expectations for this game? Any predictions? What do you see going into this week for college football? Not just including App State and ECU, but let's bring it out to college football now.
Start with your point about the App State and ECU game. I think App State is probably going to come out on top. I do think they're the better program, more history, more experienced coaching staff. Aguilar's been there. Not to say that Holton Ahlers is not. I think he's still the quarterback for ECU. Not sure. Don't quote me on that. I have not seen a lot of ECU football, but I know Aguilar is still the quarterback for App State. I just feel like I know ECU made a bowl for the first time in a while last year, and that's a great accomplishment. But I feel like App State's been on the scene. Like, they're constantly making bowls. They're giving Power 5. I mean, they beat Texas A&M in the last couple of years. I know that's not the same squad, but the experience is there. The culture is there. ECU, they're trying to kind of revive that football culture. And I could be wrong. ECU at times has had a really strong football culture, and I feel like a win here could really solidify that. A lot of people see App State as a playoff team. This is a chance for ECU to come out and say, hey, we're back. We're in the picture. We really need to be considered for one of these group of 5 spots for the playoff. And in terms of the rest of the game, one game I'm really looking forward to seeing is Colorado and how they bounce back after that blowout. I think beginning of the season, I feel like one blowout, an outlier game, like App State. Okay, not to go back to App State, but their game against Clemson got embarrassed on national TV. They're going to come out swinging. And it was just unfortunate that App State just happened to be the first face in front of Clemson that they could pummel into the ground. That was going to happen to whoever was next. Power 5, ACC, unless it was like Texas, that was what was going to happen to who was next. Dabo probably lit a fire under their butt. They were probably like, no, we're Clemson. I know Joe Ovius and Joe Giglio talked about on their podcast that no matter how bad Clemson is a year, they have what's called a screw you, Clemson. I'm Clemson. They're really bad year in 2021. Horrible year, came out and destroyed Wake Forest. That's a point they brought up, and I just wanted to cite my source for that, so I'm not plagiarizing their idea there. But I feel like they said on there, that was Clemson's game. I do think that doesn't drag on App State. And I think Colorado is better than their result against Nebraska. I do feel like, particularly with how Dion's played the portal, he was a big portal guy, unlike Dabo, played opposites there. Now, however, I do think the elephant in the room, the line, is going to. I know Shadur has been vocal about that, which is something I disagree with him on about the line. With the first thing in your press conference asking how many times did the opposing quarterback get touched. Yes, you can blame the offensive line. The offensive line is absolutely at fault for a good amount of what happened at the game. Sanders didn't really have time to throw. He didn't really have clean pockets, and he was just kind of running for his life the entire game. Which that's not a recipe for success for anyone outside of maybe Johnny Manziel and Jaden Daniels. Like, just with how dynamic they are. And I'm not saying Shadur's not that dynamic either. I'm just saying it's not really his play style to be kind of running everywhere. He's trying. I wouldn't say he's a pocket passer. I feel like he can escape, but my point is he's trying to establish himself as a quarterback, and you cannot really do that with no line. But there's a way, time, and a place for that. Talk to them in practice. Talk to them after the game. Don't throw them to the wolves. That is the media. Don't let that be the first thing you say. And Aiden and I, we love Dion. We do have our criticism. I definitely agree with Dan Lanning's quote last. They were playing for clicks at times. I don't want to say the entire season. I feel like at times because Dion, I like the culture he instilled. I liked what I saw immediately, like the impact that he had on the team at least. And I know social media only shows you so much, but like he was making sure they were getting the details right. And I know social media can be fake, but there were videos of him throwing Snapchat videos circulating around of him throwing players out for showing up with the wrong socks on to lift. And I feel like how he set that program up is not how they're playing. He was trying to build them up by having them do the little things right first, but there's some sort of disconnect because the line play is not there. I mean, clearly with how many points Nebraska hung on them, their defense is not all there either. I mean, I do you agree? Like if
Yeah, I would say their defensive play has uh, been pretty lackluster. Dion's an anomaly for me. There's things that he says, like there was a quote a while ago where he said he like you can't build a culture, and he wasn't focused on building a culture. But then there's videos of him exactly doing that. But then immediately to go back, sometimes just the locker room tendencies of throwing the O line under the bus. That's definitely not a good look for anyone. And I feel like Shadur Sanders will come to reconcile with that. This week against Colorado State is going to be a big game in determining just the direction of the season. The game against North Dakota State, a lot of us knew it was going to be a close game, and North Dakota State isn't a team to take lightly at all. And I feel like a lot of people knew that it was going to be a dogfight. Shadur Sanders was talking crap on social media and saying that they weren't a threat, but I feel like deep down a lot, like if you know ball, you know North Dakota State is not a team to take lightly, and I truly like deep down know that Colorado wasn't taking North Dakota State lightly, and it came down to the wire. North Dakota State almost came out with the win, but Colorado was able to get a grip and play them and come out with the win. Nebraska playing in Lincoln is hard, and it's starting to become harder because Nebraska is on the up. That was also going to be a tough game. Seeing Shadur walk out 2 minutes before the game ends, that's never a good look on anyone. But this game against Colorado State, a rivalry game, is going to be important in dictating how this season is going to go with Colorado facing adversity. They were here this moment last year against Stanford. They started to face adversity, and after that, they kind of fell off a cliff. But are they going to respond to the adversity that is that was Nebraska and come out and punch Colorado State on the in the neck? I think it's going to be a tough game in general. I feel like Colorado State is going to come out hungry. They didn't get the win last year when Colorado was on the hype train and the media was loving Colorado. And they were able to play Colorado very close going into overtime. Uh, it's 50-50 for me whether I think Colorado or Colorado State's going to win. Um, my mind is telling me that Colorado State is going to play disciplined and they might have Colorado's number. But my heart is still, I'm still putting my faith into the work that Dion has done at Colorado. So I say it's going to be a tough game going into Colorado State. I see Colorado, if Colorado wins, is going to be a close win, and that's what I'm airing on. That's what my prediction's going to be. But we'll only see next week for that. Bringing it back to the Carolinas, I didn't get my pick for the ECU App State game. Um, I'm very like I'm very high on ECU. I think ECU definitely has a potential to turn their culture around, and I feel like that's what we might be seeing. But App State is they're about as blue blood as you can get for a group of five. They're a media darling. Everybody loves App State, and I'm a big uh, I support App State. I think it's a good program that they have going on there. But something about me is saying that this might be the time where we see a rise in ECU football. So with that, I'm going to say the Pirates are going to come away with the win on that one. But that's going to be my upset pick of the week. If there is an upset, I feel like it's going to be. I feel like ECU definitely has the potential to dethrone App State as the main group of five school in the Carolinas. But this is going to be a culture defining game. It's going to dictate whether what I said about ECU is true or whether App State is still going to be here to stay for a long time, which I still think they are. I think if they do come away with the win, they aren't a shoe-in for the playoffs by any stretch of the mean. There are a ton of powerful group of five schools that have a spot, but App State will definitely be in the running. But this is a sleeper playoff implication type of game that I feel like the media is not talking about enough.
Oh, definitely. And that's particularly, at least on the App State side, there is some talk about how people think they are going to five, the group of five to get in. And as you kind of alluded to, they really are the kind of the group of five poster child that used to be Boise State about 5-6 years ago when App State was first coming on the scene. That five poster child, the playoff what if was either UCF or Boise State. Those are kind of the two poster childs, with UCF now being a Power Four program, and Boise State kind of they're not bad now, but they've kind of fallen off. They're like kind of like 7-5, 8. They're good, but not great.
Boise State has been making a name for themselves this year. I feel like they played Oregon pretty strong, and I think they're definitely a team to look out for. Texas State, they just had, at the time of recording this, they just had their game against Arizona State, and they played Arizona State very close. Uh, it was 31-28 going in the way of the Sun Devils. Only a win by a field goal. Texas State is another team that we should be looking out for on a sleeper playoff team. Their schedule, they played UT San Antonio. They walked them in that game, 49-10. The rest of their season is going to be not as hard, but they had a very promising showing against Arizona State. So we're not going to be talking about them every week, but quote me on this on saying that Texas State is a team we should be looking out for in the next coming weeks. And if it gets down to November, December, and we see Texas State ranked, don't be surprised if we see them in the conversation for a playoff game, especially if their only loss is a close loss against Arizona State.
And I agree. Arizona State, while they were not picked to win the Big 12 this year, because I think we can all agree that's Utah's conference to lose this year, especially with how many people they're returning. But Arizona State was a team a lot of people were high on this year. And to see, like you said, Texas State kind of hang in there, I think that bodes well for them. And like you mentioned, Boise State this year kind of having a resurgence. I do think that may have Oregon not being as good. Now, I will say on that note with Oregon and back to the Colorado point, scheduling that I applaud the bravery of scheduling top tier FCS teams, but in my opinion, it's kind of trying to think of a way to say it. It's kind of suicide.
It
You know,
is.
scheduling people like North Dakota State, Idaho. In past years, Western Carolina has been that. Florida A&M when Quincy scheduled Florida A&M a few years ago. Good FCS program. Scheduling powerful FCS programs, yes, it's a dice roll. But in terms of how the media will see, the media, I feel like, doesn't pay a lot of attention to FCS football. Like, I mean, the media knows who the Dakota schools are because they win the most, but the media doesn't know who's like the second, third, and fourth teams those years. And that those teams are just as good and take North Dakota State to the wire. But what the media doesn't recognize is the media will throw you, crucify you. Like, I don't blame Oregon for struggling with Idaho. They're the number 5 team, and I think they're either number 5 or number 7 in FCS. You are inviting trouble doing that. It's like the notice that the ACC put out that they want their teams to stop scheduling road group of 5 games for openers. Because
We're in an age where the group where FCS is on a resurgence of the likes that a lot of people are just not ready for yet. Idaho, the Montanas, and the Dakotas, they're all good. And though I think you say that the media is not as high on them, I would have to disagree. I think this is a renaissance for FCS football right now. This is the most eyes that the nation has ever had for FCS schools. And even in group of 5 schools, we're starting to realize that there is talent on all sides and all aspects of football, and programs are going to start accommodating for that in the next coming years, and they're going to be more hesitant when it comes to scheduling these quote unquote easy wins. um, like even I say this as a Notre Dame fan, not the biggest Notre Dame fan anymore, but I still rep the Irish when I can. I'm more Tar Heel blue and blue now, but NIU outclassed Notre Dame that day, and they were able to come away with a win. And schools are going to start seeing uh, on all levels of football, there are no easy wins anymore. With the transfer portal, yes, a lot of talent goes to these big schools, but we're seeing talent go to across the nation in places where we wouldn't expect it. And I feel like it's good for football. And we're going to see a lot more talk of FCS schools and group of 5 schools on the national stage of the likes we haven't seen before. In the early 2000s, nobody knew who App State was, but then they beat Michigan and they sort of put FCS schools on the map again. And with that, App State was able to create a culture and go become a powerful group of five school. And if you ask me, in the next couple years, they're going to be up for contention with a conference realignment. Culture is being built all across the country, and we're going to be seeing the rise of more FCS schools being talked on the national program. I feel like on the national scale. I feel like.
And I do believe in terms of, like you said, the transfer portal being the great evener. I'm gonna go a step further, and I know when NIL came out, a lot of people were talking about how this was just gonna kind of, Bama was just gonna buy all the good players, but I don't think people really looked at that below a surface level. What they also fail to realize is players love to play. They don't wanna just go to Bama and sit and collect a paycheck. Those players, when they find out that 'cause you can only play 33 players. I mean, yeah, you can rotate through them, but, like, there's 33 spots. There's 33 playing spots on a given down. There's 85 players on scholarship and probably 100 plus on the sideline. The majority of those players aren't gonna get in the game, and like you said, the talent's starting to go elsewhere. They're not playing. I mean, we saw this. I know Tate Martell never really played much, but you saw he left Miami, and I forget where he went, but he went to some Group of 5 school. I think he played there? I don't think he did, but talent is going like you said, talent's going elsewhere. Smaller schools have the money to start, like, it's legal to pay recruits now. That is okay. That's no longer, like, death sentence for your program. You can pay recruits to come to you now. And, like, I have the opposite take of a lot of people. I think NIL is gonna be like the great evener, like, the great kind of distributor. Yes, Alabama and the schools that can afford it are gonna be better, but I think it's gonna be college football is gonna be more like college basketball, where you're gonna have these teams that are kind of like, every 4 years have a good squad, they've got a good transfer portal. Their freshmen have become experienced seniors where they're gonna make runs to the playoff. Kinda like those like I said, the teams in March Madness that you see, like, every 4 years, Wichita State, when all their freshmen become seniors, they make the tournament. And major schools that, they're nobody 3 out of 4 years. But, like clockwork, like the cicadas that come every 17 years when they fully mature. When these teams fully mature, the NIL money comes in, they get a good transfer portal class. Those seniors or those freshmen mature into seniors, they have a good run. And I think we're gonna see a lot more, like you said, a lot more teams like App State. They just kind of not come out of the ether because obviously now there's more people paying attention to them, like you said. But, like, they're gonna kinda start to come out of the woodwork. Your James Madison, they kinda came onto they were always a good FCS program, but they kind of, you know a lot of people, like, who are these people? Like, a lot of, like, I don't wanna say the more casual fans, but a lot of people, who didn't pay as much attention to FCS were like, "Who are these people coming out of the woodwork? Who is this purple and gold team giving good teams a run for their money?" I think teams like Idaho may make a resurgence back to the FBS level because of NIL. I know in recent years, it was tragic when Idaho and the Kibby Dome dropped down to the FCS level. I know you and I were devastated,
No
but
Kibby
they hadn't
Dome in
been good.
the college football 25 game. That's devastating for me. But and it's I always go back and forth because I think there's going to be a resurgence of all in years for me. Like that's what I think is going to happen because like you give JMU as an example, they had an all in push year, but then unfortunately they lost a lot of players to the transfer portal, and their coaches left. I don't see JMU making a push for the playoffs this year. But in 5, 6 years, I wouldn't be surprised if there's another all-in year where the stars align for these small schools. That's what it's all going to be about. It's about when the NIL meets the opportunities of the lower classmen and becoming upperclassmen. The ones that stayed there are going to really hit their stride in these smaller programs. And we're just going to see a new random team emerge every year. And will those talents be eventually lost? Yeah. And would those teams not have the infrastructure to replicate that success again? Probably not, but we're going to see a resurgence of these all in years. Like when a pro team decides to dump all their money into 1 year and get the best players and everything. I think that's what we're going to see. We're not going to see these smaller schools be mainstayers, but they're going to have these lightning in a bottle seasons that we're going to talk about for years. We're going to, in 20 years from now, we're going to be talking about, oh, what about that legendary run in 2029 when San Jose State was able to make a push for the playoffs, but then they kind of fell off. I think that's what we're going to have. I don't see NIL being a supplement or a boost for the smaller schools for maintained success, but I do see it as a boost for these lightning in a bottle seasons that truly make us love and remember college football. That's what I think is going to happen.
Definitely, and that's something I'm excited for. We always love upsets. I talked about like upset picks, and I do think, like you said, just similar. Like we kind of made the similar points. Like I talked about, like this kind of like the circular path, like cicadas, like their kind of like rhythm of showing up, like you said, lightning in a bottle, like teams where they'll go all in, kind of similar to like with what was the 2021 or 2022 Los Angeles Rams that kind of did that. They said, "To hell with money. We're going all in. We're winning a Super Bowl. We've got Stafford. We're going to bring in defensive firepower. We're going to bring in offensive firepower." And they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, beating the Bengals, who everyone thought was going to be that year's powerhouse, but turns out, you know, McVay and company just went all in. It's You love to see it. It's gonna make for great entertainment and great TV. And I cannot wait to see, especially with this new 12-team playoff, which I feel like that's kind of the big thing that we've kind of beat around, is the 12-team playoff now allows for these group of 5 teams to have lightning in a bottle season. Because obviously we know the tragic story of the 12-0 UCF feeling robbed, them claiming a national championship. That's neither here nor there. I'm not going to comment on whether they should be able to claim that, but I do think I am a big proponent of this 12-team playoff. It allows teams that have those lightning in a bottle season to really. And with that, I think one thing Aiden and I wanted to do, just kind of segueing around college football, is I think Aiden and I are going to kind of break down where we think our each respective teams are. I know transfer portal, how I kind of thought about this transition. We were talking about the transfer portal, and kind of a point I've seen bounced around the internet was how poorly transfer quarterbacks are performing this year. Now, NC State and Carolina are in different areas with their transfer quarterback. Their transfer quarterbacks aren't performing, but it's for different reasons. One's hurt, so he's literally not performing. Dude is in the hospital, and one's actually not performing. Banter aside, seeing UNC's quarterback on what name? Will Rogers, right?
Max Johnson.
Max Johnson. Oh my, I spoofed on that. My bad. Max Johnson. When I saw him go down, Max Johnson was honestly someone I wanted to see at NC State, just because he has experience in more of like a spread style, throw it around. I was excited about Grayson McCall at NC State, but I did have my doubts. Coastal Carolina, when he was there, was more of they were a spread option team, but their main focus was the triple option. And while he did have a good track record, he had some 80 touchdowns to 69 INT. But one point I wanted to bring up with NC State and transfer quarterbacks in general is back to kind of it's so over for some people. At least in my mind, it's over for Robert and I, in my mind, at least in terms of my patience for him, our offensive coordinator. I love Brennan Armstrong. Had a rough start to last season. I predicted that. People told me I was crazy. But how I thought about this and how I came to was, I'm an athlete. I'm an athlete. I'm a former athlete. I played college sports. Aiden's a former high school athlete, played high school football for a local high school in Raleigh, where we both grew up. Um, One thing we wanted to talk about and touch on is the impact of injuries. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks this year transfer following a massive injury in the last couple of years, and their success hasn't been great. I mean, obviously, the outlier, Michael Penix Jr., got injured at Indiana, had a history of injury, was injury prone, had a standout season, was a Heisman finalist. But that's not how it goes for everyone. My main criticism of NC State's offensive coordinator, Robert Anae, is his recent affinity with transfer portal quarterbacks that are. Don't get me wrong, transfer quarterbacks in the past have done NC State right. Kobe Brissett, Ryan Finley. Were they hurt? No. But these were quarterbacks that were promised to be electric, that were going to take us to the next level. Yes, Jacoby Brissett and Ryan Finley's first few games are rough, but the expectation for NC State that season was not to make the playoff. So, at that time, NC State was like your 7-5, 8-4. That was the expectation. So if your quarterback has a rough game against an FCS team, they're not a playoff contender. It's okay. But this year, where Doran and I were talking a big game about being playoff contenders and having McCall play like he did, that's just kind of unsettling for me. And I really kind of question the direction the program's going. And I'm not blaming this on Grayson McCall. As a college athlete who sat out half of my freshman year, I cannot begin to get into the damage that does to your athletic. I am not blaming McCall for his performance. I am blaming Anae for bringing in a transfer quarterback who, transfer quarterbacks, regardless of injury, no matter how successful they are, there is an adjustment. We've seen it with Notre Dame's former cornerback, Riley Leonard. While Notre Dame had a great showing against Texas A&M, Riley Leonard was kind of non-existent in that win. Riley Leonard was non-existent in the NIU game. His deep ball accuracy was awful. Another example, this former NC State quarterback, Devin Leary, destroyed his arm in the Florida State game. Never the same quarterback. Went to Kentucky. Really struggled there. Another example. I lost either example, but that's neither here nor there. But my point is, if this is supposed to be a season, whereas NC State, we're supposed to make the push to go from 9-10 win team to 11 win team, 12 win team, talking about playoff contention, you cannot have what happened the first two games. This team has the potential to be great. We had the potential to beat Tennessee, and we had the potential to blow out Western Carolina, but it came down to the quarterback play. Grayson McCall was not ready to play. Western Carolina, we had the momentum. What does Grayson McCall do? Bonehead read turns into an almost pick six.
I don't.
Tennessee. All right, go for it.
No, you continue. I was going to go on a little bit. I'll go on my tangent in a little bit.
NC State down 10-3 to Tennessee, coming off a big interception with a massive return. They're driving. Tennessee's defense is reeling. It's 10-3. We are on Tennessee's 15. We are looking great. 1st and 10. What does Grayson McCall do? Overthrows the exact same route that he overthrows in the Western Carolina game. Not the exact same play. The exact same route in the exact same direction. Throws a pick six. Kind of took the wind out of the sails. Everyone was kind of seemed defeated by then. And it wasn't the players. It seemed to be the coaching staff, because then the play call changed. They lost all faith in McCall. As a athlete coming off of an injury, having a coach not have faith in you, it's just like you're good as done. I'm not saying my coach didn't show me support after I wasn't injured. I sat out with COVID. And I was lucky enough where my coach believed in me, and that made my path to getting back to where I was a little easier. But Aiden, I want to ask your opinion here. If you're a quarterback who's coming off of you're a great quarterback at Coastal Carolina, you get hurt your senior, transfer to a big program. Yes, you make a rough play, but you're a transfer quarterback. You sat out. This is a new offense. You make a mistake, and your offensive coordinator stops throwing the ball after the first mistake that game. You were driving. You were perfect the rest of the game. I think you have one incompletion up to this point. Yes, you make a bonehead read and overthrow a simple out route, but you throw a pick six and the offensive coordinator just throws his hands up and starts running the ball. and running the ball is ineffective. What's going through your mind? That like you were a quarterback for Cardinal Gibbons. Say this happened to you in a game. You make one mistake, the coach starts running the ball, and it's not effective, and he continues to run it. What kind of message would that send to you as a quarterback?
Well, with my very limited time as being a backup JV quarterback at Cardinal Gibbons, I don't want to harp on that too much because there would be no damn right. The coach would not be right in his mind if he wanted to throw the ball with me when I was like 5'5", 100 pounds soaking wet. I would understand if he was wanted to run the ball uh, every day. I was not the specimen you see in front of yourself today when I was in high school, but that just doesn't send the best message. But uh, I think Grayson McCall will remain a story for all transfer quarterbacks. Uh, I don't. I've never. I'm not. I didn't pay attention to Grayson McCall too much at Coastal Carolina, but he was almost a household name. I knew him. I was aware of him, and he was doing his thing at Coastal Carolina. And his move to NC State, at first I was like, oh, this could be a fun little move. But then now but more as like a week after that move in the transfer portal happened, I just got to thinking, I don't understand how you, as Grayson McCall, would decide, hey, I have a pretty good gig at Coastal Carolina. I get to go to school at Myrtle Beach, Carolina, and just go to NC State on the national stage and basically get thrown under the bus by your coach if you started failing. He was doing good at Coastal Carolina. He was a great quarterback for Coastal Carolina. I don't know that much about Coastal Carolina's history, but he was probably one of the best quarterbacks Coastal Carolina ever had. Why would you leave a prime opportunity of playing by the beach and spending your days not going to class? I don't know if Coastal Carolina has classes. I know I go to UNC, and that's infamous for the paper classes and all that stuff. I don't know a single person that has a degree from Coastal Carolina. I know people that have gone to Coastal Carolina. I don't know if they've gotten a degree from Coastal Carolina. It's a pretty good gig you got there if you're a student athlete. I don't understand why you would go from there to NC State. That makes no sense to me. But what is done is done, and he's at NC State now. I like. I think he made the decision that was best for him in his heart, and I can never fault a man for doing that. If you do something that you believe is the right move for you and the right move for your family, I will never bash you. But you got to think that other transfer quarterbacks are going to be seeing this and saying, hey, do I really want to mess up the good gig that I have going on at my small school where I'm the man on campus? Everybody knows my name. Everybody loves me. Everybody is wearing my jerseys in the stands, and they love me. To go to a bigger school where they're going to literally throw you to the wolves if you just don't perform. They're going to run the ball to a brick wall just to make sure you don't get the ball. That's insulting to me. And that would be insulting to Grayson McCall. I feel bad for the man, but I don't even know what I'm tangenting him on. I just don't know why he left Coastal Carolina. That's a damn good gig that he had going on. If you got to tell me, hey, Aiden, you get to go to Coastal Carolina and chill and be the big man on campus for 4 years, I'd say sign me up. I'm going to get my bag regardless. I'd probably be getting a bigger bag at Coastal Carolina than I would at NC State because the people at Coastal Carolina love me. They don't have the alumni or maybe the boosters that NC State has, but now you're put under a microscope and you're just being hounded and hated by people who don't know you and people who want to see out of that job. I guarantee, like college sports is rough. If you're not performing, I always think of Spencer Rattler and his time at Oklahoma when the fans were chanting to him to get the hell off this field. That's got to be mentally like. You don't think that messes with someone psychologically? That's insane to me. But I digress. Um, it's I feel bad for the guy. I think he's going to have a good game against Louisiana Tech, and I hope he makes his comeback, and I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he proves that going to NC State was not only the best move for him personally, but the best business move that he could have made. But you just gotta sit and think that this is probably a warning sign to everyone. Why risk being the biggest? Why risk throw away your job of being the big man on campus when you're going to be going to a school that if you don't perform the way that they want you to perform at a high caliber that you may or may not be able to do, uh, why take that risk? But that's just my perspective on it.
And I do think he's going to be very similar to Brennan Armstrong, where it is a new offense for him. And to your point, like why go to NC State? It's also a completely different style of offense. Like NC State does not run the triple option. If like for those of you who don't know, NC State runs the furthest thing from this triple option, probably. And
There ain't real
like
football if you ain't running the triple option.
as much as Aiden and I would love to say that, but it's Grayson McCall was running the triple option out of the pistol. And I understand he probably went to NC State to try and get some pro exposure. Like, I know the Carolina schools have sent people to the draft, like in recent years, like Drake May is an NFL quarterback, Sam Howell, Ryan Finley, Kobe Brissett, Philip Rivers, Russell Wilson. Like, these triangle schools are known for sending people to the pros, making
You
decent
forgot
pro
Danny
prospects.
Dimes. You
Oh,
forgot
yeah.
Danny.
Sorry. The Giants quarterback, Daniel Jones. I'm sorry. It's over for him. Sorry, I forgot to add that. It's over for him. No disrespect. He's a good quarterback. I just think he's in a bad situation. Obviously,
I
hideous.
don't know. He's got that. He's so fast he trips himself up. I'll always love have Dan. I'll always have love for Daniel Jones. He's that goofy running Eli Manning look-alike is one of my favorite things to ever come out of Duke, and that's coming from a Carolina fan over here.
And okay, so we've talked about NC State for a bit. We'll talk about probably NC State and Carolina's prospective games here. But as a Carolina fan, how do you rate how your season's going? I know obviously like the Minnesota game, an absolute blow to Max Johnson. Like that was you guys were able to pull it out, but that's got to be an absolute like kick nuts right there in terms of not momentum, but it's kind of like vibes. Like you're starting quarterback and transfer portal, and then boom.
I
So
mean,
what's going through your head as a Carolina fan?
if I'm saying what's going through my head right now, I'm sorry, my camera keeps on messing up. Let I don't know if you are going to be using the visual that much, but if you're a visual watcher, I'm sorry for that. I got my camera situated. If I'm giving my honest perspective as a UNC student and as a UNC fan, I'm going to say this right now. The media already said this season was going to be a 6-6 season to begin with. They were saying we were going to lose to Minnesota, and we were able to come out there with a win. And my perspective is we have time to develop and get ready for the big games right now. This week we're going up against North Carolina Central. That's going to be another prime time. Well, not it's technically prime time. It's like 6 o'clock. It's not a prime time game, but it's a prime time to get our experience, get ready for the bigger games that are yet to come. We got James Madison next week, and after that, it comes our first big test since Minnesota. It's going to be Duke. That's going to be a rivalry game. A lot of emotions are going to be flowing. It's going to be a dogfight, but we're going to have these 2 games of getting ready and being ready to go. And am I upset that injuries have rattled us? Absolutely. Well, I would prefer that we're healthy and we have everybody that is ready to go, but that's not how life is. And I feel like UNC has been doing a great job as the next man up mentality. They didn't just lay down and die when our star guy went out of it against Minnesota. And granted, we won off a missed field goal in Minnesota, but a win is a win. Uh, a strong enough showing against Charlotte. I was satisfied with that win. It wasn't a blowout, 38-20, but the momentum of the game, I feel like the score of that game doesn't dictate the tone that that game was won in. And I feel like, if I'm going to be honest, I am optimistic for UNC this season. Do I think they're going to be a playoff caliber team? No, I think they might be a top 25 team though. I think they have a strong. They're go like they we have a, North Carolina Central this week. I think that's going to be a win. James Madison. I feel like James Madison is not the James Madison that we know of last year. I think that's also going to be a win. We're going in 4-0 at this point. Duke, that's going to be a tough game. I can't get into the weeds about Duke. Pittsburgh is going to be a tough game. Georgia Tech is a tough game. There are no easy, despite what the media say, there are no easy wins in the ACC. I feel like I feel like it's going to be, conference play is going to be tough, but anything above what was the expected 6-6, I would be happy with. And I look at the schedule and I see like there's a prime spot for a top 25 spot or a decent bowl.
I agree. I think the media hate around the ACC, I feel like it's kind of like, you know how people meme about hating Nickelback and that they're a terrible band?
Hmm.
I think the sports version of that is ACC. Because look at this. Cal, supposed to be the bottom of the barrel ACC team, goes into Jordan Hare. And yeah, it was close, but puts up a convincing showing and comes out with a W against Auburn. If you told me Cal was winning that game, I'd ask you what drugs you were, like, if I'm being completely honest. And like you said, Aiden, like, I do think Carolina can have a good season. I think you bounced back well against Charlotte. Yes, like you said, the score didn't dictate everything. So your quarterback doesn't dictate your entire offense, but that's a new quarterback. That's someone who people like, he hasn't been getting first team reps, and people hadn't had as many reps with him as they had with Max Johnson. And I think I feel like you said, the score does not reflect what happened that game, because I feel like that was a learning game for you guys. Because it's like Harrell was getting his first true start. Connor Harrell was getting his first true start, performed decently well, but he wasn't the guy getting first team reps all summer. That was going to be a learning game, and I feel like people can't really judge you for having only an 18-point win over them when you're playing with a guy who didn't get first team reps over the summer. And I feel like as the season goes on, y'all are going to get better and improve. And to your point, ACC play is always going to be a bloodbath. And that's why people dog on the ACC in every single sport. Basketball is another prime example. Everyone says the ACC sucks in basketball because we just slaughter each other during conference play. You can't overlook even a Boston College team well below 500, because if you don't take them seriously, they will jump up and get you regardless of sports. Like, those, even the quote unquote weaker teams will jump up and get you. But then postseason, you always have a great showing and everyone acts surprised. I'm not saying
I
there's
want to
been
give a little moment to, since you brought out Boston College, to a guy on TikTok that I love him, and everybody should check him out. CF Bulge, he is the biggest Boston College hater I have ever seen in my life, and I like it, his content always makes me smile. But he has been dogging on Boston College for a while, and people will dog on Florida State. I like, as even though this podcast has been the theme of it's over, I don't think it's over for Florida State. I don't think it's over for a lot of these ACC teams that we say it's over for. This season, college football is weird. Anything can happen. And I'm going to, I am, as a UNC fan, I am uh, not the most happy with the current situation, but I am not holding my head down at all. I am excited for these next couple games of seeing what this team can do. And I think this team has the intangibles to make a deep run in the ACC. And come near the end of the season, I hope Gareth might be able to make the trip down from Boston to the Carolinas, and we can see. I think the North Carolina State UNC game is going to be a great game, and is going to have all these questions that we have right now would have been answered, and we're going to see two great football teams represent the state of North Carolina and really put on a showing of what the ACC is capable of for football, and that the ACC is not dead yet when it comes to this era of realignment and all these articles saying that the ACC is on its way out. I think if the ACC management can get its stuff together, I think the ACC is still here to stay.
Oh, definitely. And like to your point about the State Carolina games, they always deliver. It's always peak cinema. Like to use a colloquial reference, it's peaks people the meme. It's peak cinema. Like got NC State kicking to Geo and Carolina winning on a punt return. You've got last second wins, missed field goals. You've got underdogs who are not even bowl eligible beating a ranked team. You've got it other ways around. Like you've got, and I feel like you can find this with any rivalry, but I feel like rivalries within the ACC are just better. It's they're
I mean, like, SEC rivalries, Big Ten rivalries, those are pretty good. But ACC rivalries, I grew up with, and I can respect an ACC rivalry. I love the ACC, and I will be an ACC apologist till I die.
oh yeah, and I'm not saying like things like the game like Ohio State, Michigan aren't entertaining. But there are some years where the game is boring. I'm sorry. And it may not be boring because I'm not an Ohio State or Michigan. I know my grandparents are. And like I don't hate Ohio State. I mean, like I want them to do well, but it's not like when they lose my
I
day's
hate
not
Ohio
over.
State. I hate what they did. They made Michigan bad for a couple years, and then that made Michigan decide to cheat. So yeah, I'm not an Ohio State guy. Ohio State is the reason why Jim Harbaugh decided to cheat and win the national championship. And that was probably the most detrimental thing that has happened to college sports because I can't stand Michigan being happy. So if Ohio State's so great, why did they allow all these horrible things to happen, Gareth? That's my perspective.
That is my perspective too. And I will say Harbaugh did turn things around. And I will say I think Connor Stallions is finally getting his. I mean, I'm not sure if any of you have saw, but there are pictures surfacing on the internet following. He's now the head coach, the interim head coach of a high school team. And there's now a video of him circulating on social media, arguing with high school refs while losing 60-0 in the fourth quarter. Like, how great of a downfall is that? You win a national championship with Michigan. People find out you're cheating, become an interim head coach. And I respect referees. They have a really hard job, but high school referees in any state are not known for accuracy. Imagine the personal hell. I mean, the rightfully earned personal hell that Connor Stallions is going through right now with high school referees arguing a call while being down 60 points. That man is in his own ninth circle of hell. Now, will it make up for what he did? Absolutely not. But I will say I will enjoy every second of his high school football team's non-success. I feel bad for the players on that team. I sympathize with them. I don't wish them a bad season for their sake, but for Connor Stallion's sake, I can get behind watching him argue with refs while being down 60 points in the fourth quarter. That is. I said ACC rivalries were peak TV. Connor Stallions screaming at a referee while being down 60 in the fourth quarter is peak TV. That just I'm not sadistic or anything, but I think that's hysterical.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I guess one final thing on college football, looking forward to games this weekend. Aiden, I'm going to let you start with Carolina first since, kind of critiques on the season. I started with NC State. When it comes, and I know North Carolina A&T, A&T, right? Is that who you're playing? You're playing
No, North Carolina Central,
Central.
baby.
You're playing the Eagles.
Oh yeah,
And I know this is I
HBCU.
don't
Let's go.
I don't want to call teams like this a pushover because FCS teams, like even not good FCS teams, the second you call them a pushover, it's like, hey, I'm gonna scare you. How about even 3? But just kind of just for the sake of argument, if Carolina wants to continue to be successful this weekend, what needs to happen? I know that they've played very clean. The first game statistically did not look pretty. It's a Big Ten game in the rain. You said it's perfect football weather, and I agree. Playing in the rain looks awesome, and I like the vibes of playing in the
It
rain.
was, it
But
was, it was, it was. I'm not gonna lie. On TV, it was kind of barely raining. I mean, it was like I don't know if they got the camera angles right, but it seemed like yeah, like a light mist. I'll say like it was not a torrential downpour. It was not the worst weather to play football in. I think like Minnesota was going to be a tough game no matter what, and coming out with a win on that as a UNC fan, I'm happy. So far, I have really nothing to really complain about going into this game against NC Central. And I feel like the keys to success are just going to be uh, just being the bigger team. UNC has uh, the bigger players, they just need to utilize the tools that they have to the utmost. They can't get complacent. They can't get lazy. If NC Central pulls off the upset, it's going to be because UNC didn't deserve to win. If you're not able to capitalize on all the players that you have that available, that UNC has right now, I feel like UNC would deserve to lose. But I am optimistic, and I think it's going to be a big win for Carolina, and it's going to be a good learning platform for the couple weeks to come.
I agree. And like I said, the Charlotte game and this North Carolina Central game for you are gonna be learning games, not in the sense that it's gonna be bad, but like I said, Max Johnson's getting first team reps all year or all summer, all throughout spring camp, and he gets hurt, and you really kind of have to pivot. Now it's not quite as bad as in the NFL where it's like backups. Backups are taking like maybe 3 or 4 reps with the first team. College, you get a little bit more because college, it's kind of more of a next man up thing. Players are gone every 4 years now with the portal. Players can leave, and it's much more common, and there's no contracts to negotiate when. So college, you kind of have to be a next man up mentality. So Harrell may have been getting more snaps than we think, but like I said, it's Carolina's game to lose. Like I do think they're gonna win. I think Connor Harrell's gonna have a decent stat line. Now, in terms of, I think the star of the stat sheet is definitely going to be one of your 2 running backs. My opinion is probably Omari and Hampton. Talks about a Heisman from him. I know last game he was kind of overshadowed by your other running back. I'm blanking on his name right now. Your other running back did have himself a day against Charlotte. He had an impressive showing
Yeah,
for being second string. But
yeah,
I do think Hampton's going to have a really good showing. Again, like you said, just you got to utilize your size. And I'm going to use that to kind of segue into NC State's games this weekend. Louisiana Tech, not an FCS program, but still a team we should beat and have a bunch of size on. My big critique from the NC State Western Carolina game is we had the size. Our offensive line outweighed them by a crazy amount. Like you said, use your size, run between the tackles. When we played Western Carolina and ran between the tackles, we averaged 6 yards a carry, but we ran between the tackles like less than 20 times that game. Most of our run plays were outside zones. If your advantage is on the inside, take it. So my keys to the game for NC State is run between first of them, run between the tackles against Louisiana Tech, exploit our size difference, assert our dominance. And that's going to take me into point two, is that's going to support McCall. While I was saying us trying to run the ball into a brick wall against Tennessee was not trusting him because that was my interpretation because it followed his mistake. And a lot of my criticism about Anai has been about he needs to supplement McCall throwing with the run game. But there's got to be nuance there. And I could see some people saying, well, you wanted him to run the ball more. There's got to be nuance. I'm not saying abandon the pass. I'm saying if he's struggling does not mean one interception. Struggling means is not hitting receivers. He looks uncomfortable in the pocket, not one mistake. If you start struggling, then you run the ball. Exploit your size. And that kind of goes into my third point, bringing up McCall. He's just going to kind of have to be on. The Western Carolina game could have been a lot bigger blowout than it was if he just didn't completely miss wide open receivers. Like, I'm talking like buy one, get one levels of free. He was overshooting receivers in that Western Carolina game. Am I saying I could do any better? Absolutely not.
You're a swimmer. You're a swimmer.
I'm a swimmer. Absolutely not. Would I even know they're open? Probably not. I mean, watching TV, I can see when they're open, and NCAA 25, which nothing like college football, but I can tell when they're open there. But you put all 5'7" of me in a pocket and tell me someone's open down the field, I probably won't be able to see that. So I'm not saying I could do any better, but I'm saying he needs to use this. They need to use this game to get Grayson McCall comfortable. Transfer quarterbacks do have an adjustment period. We saw it with Jacoby Brissett. We didn't really see it with Ryan Finley because Ryan Finley came over with his offensive coordinator. So there was no real adjustment period for Finley. We saw an adjustment period with Brennan Armstrong. He really didn't catch fire until that Wake Forest game, until that Virginia Tech game. He became that Brennan Armstrong again that set the ACC record for passing yards in a season, for passing touchdowns. One of the two. I'll fix that in post. But that record-setting season, I believe he now holds, I will fact check this later, but he holds the record for passing yards in a career for UVA. Like, he became that electric player that he
Damn,
was.
he threw for more than 2 yards?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Now, was he 20 in his final season, in his season with NC State, even in that second half of the season where he kind of came back into his own, was he 2021 Brennan Armstrong? No, absolutely not. And I think that speaks to the injuries he's kind of suffered over his career, because you aren't the same when you come back from those. Do I think Grayson McCall is going to be 100% the player he was last season? No, I don't expect him. But my frustration with this is when we have playoff level expectations that the staff is setting, we need playoff level execution at their level. I love having Grayson McCall. He seems like a great dude. I love the mullet aura. I love like the aura he's trying to bring with the mullet and the kind of good juju he's trying to bring himself with that. And he's trying to make it look good, play good. I believe in that. But there's going to be an adjustment period. And if we wanted to be set up for success this season, we either needed to have had different expectations. And I'm not saying we can't perform well in the ACC this year. I'm just saying we're going to either need to temper our expectations, or we're going to need higher caliber performances out of our leaders. The players' talent is there. The defense looked great. And I know you're saying Gareth, they just had 51 points put on them. That is on the coaches and administrators. If you leave a defense to hang out to dry, I've got a point here. If the opposing offense is starting on your 35-yard line, your own 35-yard line, you've essentially just gotten them out. You say we'll use an analogy here. They're in a house. There's a blizzard outside. You've taken their jacket away, kicked them down the front stairs, slammed and locked the door, and said, "Deal with it." And I love going for it. I love going for it on fourth down. Don't get me wrong. But running the ball on 4th and 2 on your own 30, I love that. Let your nuts hang. But if the run game's not working, let's not do that on 4th and 2. Let's not be like, oh, the defense will bail us out. Yes, Tennessee was getting a lot of yards, but what was happening when Tennessee, the rare occurrence, when they started in their own end, when we did not turn the ball over on downs in our own end, when Tennessee started on their 20 or 25, they'd slowly push. Our defense would give, and then Tennessee would stall out on the edge of the red zone and either punt or kick a field goal. Where they began to pull away was when Doran's like, I've got an idea. Let's run the ball into the line on 4th and 2 when the run hasn't worked all night. Sorry, Robert Anae, the play caller. My bad. We turn the ball over. Tennessee goes 30 yards and scores. You can't blame the defense. You're like, hey, I know you've got a short field, but can you do something against this explosive offense? We know it takes you 30 yards to wear them down, but we'll give you a little 5-yard window near the end zone. Defense, first time that happens, holds them to a field goal. What does Dave Doran do on the next drive? Hey, you know the thing you did on the last drive? Can you do that again? And after a while, when your defense is out there the entire second half against an offense that's predicated on wearing you down by using wide splits, is not a recipe for success. Now, like Aiden and I always say, are going to always say on this podcast, could we have done any better? Probably not.
That's why I'm doing this.
Would I have a little bit better play call on 4th and 2? I would like to think you and I would have a little bit better play call on 4th and 2 on our own end of the field when we need to go. If running the ball is not work, I would hope you and I would have the foresight to throw it and not run it into the line. And after about 2 times going, well, damn, we're not getting 4th down conversions on our own side of the field. But you know what? Our defense is stopping them when they're starting in their own end. And when Tennessee's starting in their own end, I hope you and I would have the foresight to say, hey, let's march Noonkester out on the field and have him hoof it the length of the field. But that's enough of that tangent. I think we just have got to play smart. If one of the facets of our offense isn't working, supplement it with the other. That is not something I've seen this. And I know Robert Anae was an offensive genius at one point. I know it's there, but I have not seen it. I know I'm being critical of him. I like his past works. It's like when your favorite artist falls off, your favorite artist or music producer falls off. You've seen the good they've done. Taysom Hill, tight end for the New Orleans Saints. Dynamic quarterback that I dare say rivaled what Lamar Jackson looked like at Louisville.
That's a crazy ass statement.
This is the man that made Nick Foles look like an absolute stud at Arizona. Now, Nick Foles is a stud. Don't get me wrong. Aiden and I had a
Nick Foles. I love. Man, Nick Foles is a legend. You never slander Nick Foles' name around me.
Nick Foles is a legend, but he's just
if
not.
Nick Foles has no fans, you know I'm dead.
Basically, what I'm saying is, if this is a quarterback, if this is a offensive coordinator that has had some of the most explosive offenses of the past 10 to 20 years, Robert Anae, he didn't come up with the RPO, but he was a part of the coaching tree that developed the RPO that we're seeing in the modern game. That Arizona offense that had Nick Foles, one of the first college programs, not use an RPO because college programs had used them before, but to, rely on them more heavily. Kind of like the 2016 Cal with Jared Goff. Heavy RPO offense. I forget what year this was at Arizona. Heavy RPO offense. Robert Anae has the innovative genius in him. I feel like he just needs to stop trying to overcomplicate things in play. So I think he's the NC State's game. Simplicity, have both facets, the run and the pass game, support each other, and just try and set up Grayson McCall for success. Play smart, don't play. That's my thing. What should we have?
All I remember of the NC State defense is when they did a legendary pick six to cut the lead down from 42 to 35 points. It was very big, and it was a great momentum sweetener. Very brave of the NC State defense. Anyway, I think we're running short on time right now, so let's do a quick little lightning round of predictions and picks for this week's upcoming games. Starting with Alabama and Wisconsin. Both teams are going in 2-0. Alabama had a rough start against University of South Florida, but they look to go into Camp Randall and win. What are your predictions for this game, Gareth?
As much as if you know anything about it, we're big upset guys. But as much as I love an upset, I just don't see, and I'm just not very high on Tyler Van Dyke as a quarterback. I know he had a phenomenal first 2 games, but I'm just not necessarily as really high on him. I think Alabama takes care of business here. I'm not saying Wisconsin doesn't have an imposing home field advantage, but I don't think Wisconsin can. What about
I got Alabama in that game. Next game, Boston College, Missouri. Boston College looking into going to Missouri. I got an upset here. I'm calling Boston College. Is that a smart pick? No. Is it my pick? Yes.
um
Gareth, what are you going
I
with?
think this is gonna be a lot closer. I do think Missouri's gonna win, but I'm part of me wants to say Boston College can pull off. I do think it's going to be a tough game, but one point I've heard brought up is, Boston College's coach has experience coaching at the professional level, and while it was a rough go about, if I may add, in the NFL, um, there's experience in that, and while Drinkwitz, former NC State offensive coordinator, made that offense look like a well-oiled machine, he's got something going at Mizzou. I do think Mizzou pull it off. I think that Mizzou is talented. Not to say Boston College is talented. Most talented roster I think I've seen out of Boston College since probably Matt Ryan. But I do think Mizzou pulls it out. I do think Boston College does make it interesting slash close. What about you? I know
I
I want
picked.
Boston College to
I
pull
want
it
I want
out.
Boston College to win. Do I think they're going to win? Probably not, but I'm still picking them. Boston College is going to win. Uh, next, final prediction that we're going to do for today. Running short on time. Tulane versus Oklahoma. Tulane is known as one of those group of 5 schools that you got to look out for. Oklahoma is 2-0, but has looked sluggish at times. I'm going to go with Oklahoma on this one. I think they got it, but Tulane's one team to look out for. Uh, I think you think the same, Gareth, right?
Yeah, probably just with as much as I love Tulane, they're not the Tulane of past years. Oklahoma, I think, while they're not the Oklahoma of past years, they are Oklahoma. They do have the players, they have the quality, they have caliber of recruits, I think. That's just gonna come down, it's like those games where it's like the teams are both like, as one team struggling or not performing up to standard, it's gonna be close, but I do think ultimately just kind of like the experience that Oklahoma has, not just I'm not saying that their players are necessarily more experienced than Tulane's, but, they're high caliber recruits. They played for tough. They played for good coaches. They were good in high school. Yeah, and they do have good players on their staff, and it is Oklahoma at the end of the day, and Brent Venables. All right, and with that, that concludes our first episode of the Tobacco Road and Abroad. Sorry it was a little hectic. We're still figuring this whole thing out. We're new to this whole podcast thing. I mean, I know I hosted a radio show with one of my friends at Providence, but we got a lot more time for those shows than we're willing to post on a podcast here for right now. So thank you for listening for the 5 of you that are listening to this. And we hope you listen to more episodes of Tobacco Road and Abroad. This was episode 1. It's so over for some people.